Check the description for the following discount codes. Today we're looking at this rather tasty looking sequential shifter from OKTANE Designs. It's called their Magnetic Sequential V2 and it is, as it sounds, a magnetic sequential shifter. Perfect for those of us who are rally enthusiasts, for example. Now, this is handmade in the USA, or hand assembled, I should say, more specifically. The actual components are not obviously individually cut out by hand, but it is hand assembled and it's got a nice weight to it. It's got a nice feel to it. And I like the way it looks. That, of course, is personal preference. Everyone likes different things. But for me, I like the look of it. I like that it's simple, it's black, it's got a nice finish, and it looks nice on your rig. Now, these are $299 US plus shipping to wherever you might want them in the world, and predominantly made of aluminium with a nice powder coated finish, as you can see here. The bolts are all stainless steel. We've got a nice OKTANE Designs logo there, and there is a reasonable amount of adjustment, which I shall also show you in a moment. This is the sort of USB interface. It is 3D printed, but it's 3D printed to a lovely standard. The finish on that is particularly nice for 3D printed. This one is micro USB, and it comes with a nice braided micro USB cable. Now, when I went to record this video and pulled up their website just to double check all the information and the current pricing, it is actually currently discounted from $319 down to $299. They've posted on here an update as of the 27th of October that changes are coming to the USB connection type once the current stock of circuit boards is depleted. So please note that your particular shifter's connection may differ from what's shown described. New product images and description reflecting this change will be posted as soon as possible. Now, as I say, because I only noticed that literally seconds ago before I started pressing record and doing the video, I've not had time to confirm. Obviously they're in the USA, I'm in the UK here. Tiny says what that connection change is going to be, but we can only assume it's going to be going from micro USB to USB-C. I mean, what else would it be? It's not going to be USB-B, is it? We're not going to go back even further in time. So I think we can probably ignore the micro USB and assume that everyone's going to get USB-C going forward. Not that micro USB is the end of the world. It functions perfectly fine. It's just everyone these days is a bit snobbish and we all want USB-C. Where's our USB-C, Carl? But the reality is it works perfectly. It makes no difference. I mean, micro USB, I was about to say it's not as secure perhaps as USB-C, but you know, it's still got two little locking pins on the cable there, so it shouldn't fall out, even if you've got a motion system, you know, like what I have in the background there. So, but anyway, as I say, and as the website said, I think that's probably going to change to USB-C anyway. Other things we get in the box, aside from what you've seen here, we actually get a spare micro switch. Comes in this little bag here. Now these are rated to something like, in fact, let me show you what else we get, and then we'll look at the tech specs, because I'll show you that, because it tells you how many actuations they're rated to. So we get a couple of Allen keys, a spanner, some T-nuts and some bolts and washers, because this is designed primarily to be mounted to, you know, an aluminium profile cockpit. We've got 3 mounting slots, or 2 mounting slots and a hole that end, and the same this end. The manual does say you only need to use 1 at each end, because you know it's not a huge, great, hefty device that you're applying a phenomenal amount of torque to. You know, even though there is reasonable resistance and leverage. That is a lovely sound, by the way. Should we just listen to the sound for a minute? It is a nice sound. You may also notice there is actually a slight delay as this returns to the center position. If I let go quickly, you'll see I've let go before you see and hear it click back to the center, or at least you might do. So when I let go, It's only a fraction of a second, and in operation, which I'll put some footage up of now, just because, you don't notice it. It's not an issue as such, because it isn't that big a delay. It's just something I thought I'd point out because I noticed it, and it is present. Just a fraction of a second delay between when you release it and when it centers itself. You know, you're not changing gear so quickly. At least I didn't find that I was. You know, when you bang down through the gears, you have to wait for the RPM in your vehicle to drop before you then go into a lower gear again. You know, you can't go from fifth to first, like bang, 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 bang. The engine would pop, obviously, and a lot of vehicles don't even let you do that. And obviously, when you go up through the gears, you're waiting to hit your peak RPM before changing up a gear anyway. So whilst there is a fraction of a delay, which I initially thought, oh, that's a bit weird, you know, the reality is it doesn't make any difference in use whatsoever. But yeah, the operation of this, it feels smooth, it feels solid. It's a nice shifter. Now, let me bring up the tech specs, because I've shown you what comes in the... Oh, I haven't actually shown you. No, I haven't. I get distracted by the sound. And then I got distracted by the delay. Other things that come in the box, Carl. Some stickers and little bits and pieces, should you want to brand up your rig with OKTANE Designs. And then there's the user guide as well, which folds open, and it shows you how to make your various adjustments to both the tension and the throw at the bottom there. There is 3 available positions for each of those 2 different types of adjustment. And of course it shows you how to mount it. And there's a little note here about maintenance, just pointing out that occasionally you might need to nip up the bolts, you know, probably after hours and hours of use. Maybe they'd work a tiny bit loose. I mean, they've got lock nuts on, so I'm going to say they probably wouldn't need to. In my experience, lock nuts don't tend to come undone. And it says particularly after making adjustments. So obviously you've loosened things off to make the adjustments, which would be these 4 here for your throw, and this one here for your tension. Then it would be sensible, you know, you do a couple of throws and just nip it up, for example. So not a big deal there. And of course it says it rides on self-lubricating bronze bushes or bearings. But if you feel the need to lubricate the action, where the lower portion of the lever engages the switch mechanism, then a small amount of lithium grease or silicone oil may be applied. Please avoid contact with the switches and the USB enclosure. That's just on the bottom there under maintenance. Essentially it's maintenance free, but you know, nice to know that should you, after a number of years maybe, or hours depending how much of a hectic sim racer you are, want to give it a little lube, you can do, and that is how you would do it. So yes, let's bring up the tech specs now, and I'll put these on the screen just so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Sequential V2 tech specs, there's your weights and your dimensions. So it weighs just over 1 kilo or 2.3 pounds. The enclosure, 6061 T6 aluminium, and the thickness is there, 4.7 mil and 3.2 mil. The lever itself, 7075 T6 aluminium. Each half is 3.2 mil thick, so they're decent thickness plates and pieces used here. Obviously it's powder coated. The knob is interchangeable and uses an M10 by 1.5 pitch bolt. This can be used with adapters also. A Delrin tip, which is what engages the actual mechanism at the bottom where it just above where it pivots, and then the lever pivot point rides on self-lubricated bronze bushings, as I mentioned earlier, something we quite often see used in sim racing equipment. Mechanism itself is steel, and then of course 3D printed components, virtually maintenance free, as I mentioned. Your typical neodymium magnets, again we see these used a lot in magnetic sequential shifters or paddles, and it just describes how it's used and how it engages the micro switches. You can read that if you want. So, well, so we've got the electronics. So the micro switches themselves, they are Omron, which is a decent brand of micro switch, and are rated to 30 million mechanical actuations. So that's what I mentioned earlier. Shouldn't really have any issues, and if you do, they've given you a spare micro switch. Anyway, it then goes on to describe the type of USB controls, a Teensy 4.0, but Arduino based. This, of course, might change and it's kind of irrelevant. Here's an interesting point as well. This is compatible with Fanatic wheelbases. If you buy the Fanatic version, it will come with the appropriate RJ12 6P6C jack instead of the USB interface that we see with this one. This means it should work on consoles with your Fanatic gear as well, which is nice because the Fanatic shifter seems to have like an electromagnetic issue where it kind of static builds up and then it will misshift and do all sorts of funky stuff. I've had it happen loads of times with mine, and all I have to do to fix it is undo the 4 Allen bolts at the top, lift it up, like waggle my screwdriver inside, put it back down, and then it works again for months. But regardless, it is annoying at times. But as a dedicated sequential shifter, I think this looks nicer, and I think it feels nicer, and it certainly sounds nicer too. But yeah, should you want a Fanatic version or a compatible version, then you can get that also. And if we scroll down a bit further, here's the mounting dimensions at the bottom here. And then here again, it shows you where you would make your adjustments. So as I mentioned previously, in the middle of the handle, up right there, the shorter it is, the more tension, the longer it is, the less tension. It's just basic leverage. And then you adjust the throw at the bottom here. Let me give you a little close up on the unit itself. You may just be able to make out additional hole there and there. There's 3 pre-drilled holes, and so you take the bolts out using an Allen key to push through from the other side, and you put them into one of the 3 available holes, and that's your 3, and you also slacken off the bottom ones at the same time. That is how you make the adjustment to the throw, and you put the bolts back in and you nip them up. So 3 preset, so it's not infinitely adjustable, 3 presets there and 3 preset holes here for the tension also, but nice to have the adjustment nonetheless. So I think it's probably, turn that screen capture off, I think that's probably everything. The price of $299 US, what would that be in pounds? A couple of £100, give or take a bit off the top of my head. I think that probably puts it in line with other shifters of this quality. Some people are going to say, you know, $200 or $300 is a lot of money for just a shifter, and I agree, but sim racing equipment is notoriously expensive these days, and when you're doing low volume, you know, production, hand assembled like we see here, you have to charge an appropriate amount to make a profit and to stay in business. So whilst I agree this is expensive, annoyingly, everything in sim racing is expensive. In fact, right now, everything in the world is expensive. I'll just give you another little close up. You know, I like the way the handle feels. It's a nice size in my hand. I could make a joke about the knob feeling nice in my hand, but probably best not to. Kids might be watching. I like the grip. I like the appearance. I like the finish. I like the way it operates. There's actually nothing I don't like about this shifter, apart from, tell a lie, that fractional delay. Whilst it affects nothing in reality, it's still there. Can I really call that a negative? Is it really fair to call that a negative as it doesn't actually affect anything? I don't know. You decide. But yes, aside from that, I have no complaints about this shifter at all. I can recommend it. There'll be a link in the description to the OKTANE website. And should you choose to get one, you certainly can. So, thanks to OKTANE Designs for sending it over to me. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and take it easy.